Robbie, let's start with you, because almost 40% of your Premier League goals were scored by the time you turned 21. I mean, that's quite incredible. You really burst onto the scene, didn't you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it helps when you're playing with good players. I think when you're playing in a team who are, creating chances, and me being a forward, you're on the end of them and sticking them away. I'm probably a little bit disappointed it's 40%, actually. It means I've not been too good for the rest of my career, isn't it? But yeah, look, I think nowadays, it is maybe tougher for players to get in. You look at formations, academy teams, playing with one up front. Whereas when myself and Michael were coming through, you were playing with other players to try and get into more positions. So I think it's more difficult now for players to get through.
Michael, were you itching to get going? Because you actually still currently hold the record for the most goals scored in the Premier League as an 18-year-old.
Right, yeah, well, it's... I mean, just adding on to what Robbie was saying in terms of getting through the ranks, I think it's far harder now because the structure is very different. Yeah. We used to have a clear structure, a B team, an A team, a reserves, and then your first team. Now they've got nothing. They've got under 23s. Well, if you're 23 playing at that level at Manchester City, Liverpool, teams like that, well, you've missed the boat. You should be breaking into the first team at 18, 19. So there's no almost bedding in period. When I got into the reserve team, I was playing with all the lads that weren't in the first team at the time, plus 2 or 3 youngsters that they thought they had a chance. So me, Jamie Carragher, David Thompson would probably be playing with the likes of, Stan Collymore, if Robbie was playing at the time, or Steve Harkness, or Rob Jones, or who, these international top quality players. So it was almost seamless then to get into the first team. The structure of the game, I feel, is wrong nowadays.
OK, Jermaine, you were bought for £5 million by Newcastle from Nottingham Forest. That was the second most expensive fee for a teenager at the time. So there was so much expectation when you joined Newcastle United, wasn't there? How did you live up to that expectation? Did you like that pressure?
I just think when you're young, you're just fearless, aren't you? I used to step onto the pitch with not a care in the world. The same way I used to step onto the pitch playing for my school team, for my my local side, for Forest. When I was young, there is no real expectancy upon your shoulders. And even when so much money was spent on me at that particular time, for me, it was just go out there and play football. And I think when you're in that mode and you're in that mindset and you've got top players around you, which I had at Newcastle at the time, and we were, I think we were battling for like 3rd and 2nd position around that time at Newcastle. We were, you kind of protected as well within that. So it allows you just to go and concentrate on you and go and do whatever you want to do. And that, that really worked out, I think, probably for all of us around those stages of our career.
Well, fearlessness is clearly a characteristic that you all possessed when you were that young. Let's talk about now in the Premier League, because Cardiff have yet to give a single Premier League minute to any player under the age of 23 this season. Now, with the stakes so high, the financial stakes so high in the Premier League, it's harder for clubs to take a gamble, isn't it?
Oh, I totally agree. Look, it's probably not ideal for certainly young players. But when you're a club, who are fighting to stay in the Premier League, you're trying to get as high as you can. I think you're not really guaranteed any with kids. I know you're not guaranteed with players coming in, but I think you've got more of a chance with, experienced players who who have played sort of in, different leagues. When you maybe giving chance to kids or under 23s who haven't played, I mean, you're actually not sure what you're going to get. So I think I see where Cardiff are coming from. It's probably not ideal, but I think we know why.
You say that the game needs to change, Michael, and how it is in terms of youth nowadays. Let's take the example of Phil Foden, who at Manchester City is playing with some of the best players in the world, which will only do him good, but at the same time, there's so much competition for places. Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't necessarily play the important games, does he? If they're 3-0 up, 4-0 up, he might get on for 10, 15 minutes, and then he might play a game in the Carabao Cup and games like that. So you could question whether that's the right thing, because I'll then draw your attention to a couple of lads that have gone to Germany, let's say. I think the system at the moment encourages, it encourages the loan. You've got to use the loan system, really, to make it work. If you look at the England squad, for argument's sake, look at Harry Kane. I mean, how many loans did he go on before he actually then developed into a very good player? There's so many players now that just either go out on loan or do something similar, because doing it the way we did it, just coming right the way through the ranks, it doesn't really happen anymore. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Wayne Rooney did it, but Steven Gerrard did it, but you're talking about the top players, still a long time ago. Yeah. Recent players, who just walks into his first team? Nobody.
I think you made a good point with obviously the pathways for football. You know, obviously Michael was saying the B team, the A team, reserves, and the first team. Nowadays you've got the 18s, the 23s, and then the first team. So the 18s and 23s is a little gap, but the 23s to the first team, the gap is absolutely huge. So it is.
Stepping stones have gone in football, unfortunately, now.